Former employees of a hazardous waste site are speaking out, trying to stop the sale of the property in Clay County.
The Florida Department of Environmental Protection is responding to concerns surrounding a former Superfund site in Clay County.
Clay County man says working at an old concrete plant has left him with a lifetime of health problems.
The old Solite plant has burned hazardous waste materials, and so now
Green Cove Springs is a small city located on the western bank of the St. Johns River. Like many places, it carries traces of change through its landscapes, development, and the people who have lived here over time. At first glance, it feels like a quiet and familiar place. But beneath the charming surface are stories connected to industry, growth, and shifting relationships to the land. These changes are not always visible, but they continue to influence how the interaction of environments are experienced today. To understand a place like this requires looking beyond what is immediately seen and paying attention to what has been built, altered, and left behind. In this context, clear answers are often difficult to establish. Instead, we are left with patterns, concerns, and unanswered questions. What is known, what is uncertain, and what is yet to be fully understood.
We live on the lake, a property next, a lake next to the property, and we've grown up there. Like, we've played it since we were kids. And when I was 13, I started like having pain in my leg. I was a very normal kid. Like, I was very active, and I started getting random pains in my back and my hip. And after about a year of going through multiple doctors and them not really coming to a diagnosis, they weren't able to figure out what was going on with my hip. It was just bitten out, and there was chunks of my bone missing. They had to give me a total hip replacement when I was 13.
So we built our house back in 2006, and we are right behind the Solite property. We live on a 10-acre recreational lake that separates us from the Solite property, and we didn't know anything about Solite when we moved there. My husband grew up in Green Cove Springs and knew that there was something there, but he didn't really totally know what they did. I know you interviewed my daughter, and we've had some major health issues in our family. I actually was diagnosed with colon cancer a couple years ago, and have nothing like that in our family. The doctor even said don't really fit the picture of someone that would have it. Was very at an age that normally you wouldn't see it as often, and so again, you know, we don't know for sure, but we do know that so many people in our area have had such major health issues, deaths, sickness, and it's affected us in a major way.
In about 1997, Charlie started having tremors, and then he started having problems walking. He continued to exercise daily to finalize the work on our house. However, the symptoms got worse, and in 2000 he was officially diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. Parkinson's is a result of contamination of the lower part of the brain called the substantia nigra. Charlie suffered for 25 years with Parkinson's. The last 4 years of his life, he was totally unable to do anything. I pray for all of the people involved in this horrible Solite issue, because they're murderers, and they put people through horrible pain and suffering, which is actually worse than just shooting someone.
Within the Russell Landing community, located outside the city limits of Green Cove Springs, one site holds the answers to many of these questions and concerns. A place influenced by industry, where the land and community were exploited and defined by lightweight aggregate kilns fueled by hazardous wastes from various companies who paid Solite to burn it. Here, minerals were extracted from the ground and reshaped as a product for use elsewhere. in a place formerly known as the Florida Solite Corporation.
My son started having heart problems, and at the age of 15, he ended up having a double lead pacemaker put in. Our daughter became very sick. She had an intestinal virus. After a few weeks, she lost like 15 pounds. We did some further testing, and they told her that she had Giardia, which is to be put in, she had to be put on strong antibiotics. She had to be homeschooled for almost 3 months. At the age of 37, she passed away with heart issues. She was very healthy, very athletic, in good shape, so we could never understand why. But she passed away by, with VFib, not AFib, VFib.
And then in 1995, I got breast cancer. There's no family history anywhere. No one in my family has ever had it. None of my cousins, none of my nieces, nobody. I was the first, and everybody that knew me was like, how could you of all people have got it when you've been doing everything so healthy for so many years? And I honestly believe that the fire tower sitting there and the smoke every day was the factor into that. And I'm going to read, I journaled during that time, and I'll read to you what I journaled one day. On 2/24/96, my friend Jill told me some very distressing news. Her friend Kelly, who had breast cancer, lived near the Solite plant. Kelly started researching the fumes put off by the plant and learned they caused breast cancer, leukemia, and prostate cancer. Then she started talking to people in the area, and 2 people who lived within 1 mile of the plant lived right across the street from each other, and they both had leukemia. The more she checked, the more people she found that had cancer that lived in a certain mile radius of the plant. Jill's uncle, Jill was my friend, worked there for years and has prostate cancer. I worked for 3 years in the fire tower located 2.5 miles from the plant. The fumes drifted upward, and I would have had to have breathed them in. Sure makes me wonder. I'm going to talk to Kelly and find out more about the research. 10 years after I had cancer, my husband got colon cancer. No way of knowing whether or not it's related to the Solite plant, but it makes me wonder. There's no history of cancer in his family at all.
The aggregate moved on, but the contamination did not. What was left behind is less visible in a sense, buried in the ground and submerged within water. For the people who live here, the continuous health and environmental concerns are not abstract issues. They are a part of everyday life. The history of this place emerges through conversations, memories, observations, and concerns passed over time. These narratives reflect a relationship to place that goes beyond data, that reveals how health and environmental conditions are experienced, interpreted, and felt. Even without clear answers, action continues through those who speak up and stay engaged and choose not to walk away.
Well, I know Mama kept having skin cancer. She had to have it cut off her face a few times. Living in the area before I went to work there, you can always count on cleaning ashes up off the vehicles when the wind shifts towards the west. You always hear the loud rumble noise from the plant when they first fire up the kiln. Because at nighttime, sound travels really good out here. The smell sometimes, you can smell it burning, whatever they were burning. Now, if you want to know what it was like working for them, it was a nightmare. Rusty catwalks. Everything constantly having to be replaced every 6 months because of the chemicals. Crawling down into the ground to grease bearings on the line. Skin burning. course, you can probably see the funky discoloration in my skin. The smell out there was terrible if the wind's blowing towards you. When I was working there in the 90s, I had a massive heart attack. Went to the hospital, I had died for over 2 minutes. Doctors said that there was an excessive amount of arsenic in my blood. So I started asking questions. And when I started asking questions, they started getting a little antsy. And then when they got antsy and they got tired of me asking questions, they fired me. They told me to leave, don't come back. And the only time I wore a hazmat suit was unloading. And that was it. Nothing ever went back out. Nothing. Everything that was on the property stayed on the property.
Not sure what you want. I've had some health issues, I guess. At 48, I had my left hip replaced. But a vascular necrosis of the femoral head. That's what my diagnosis at 48. Hip replacement. I went to Gainesville with a Shands. And then about 10 years later, I had my right hip replaced. Both times, same issue. I'm not sure, but no blood was circulating in my hip anymore. I've had my back surgery. I've had L4, L5, S1 back fusion surgery. So from here down, I'm metal, nothing but metal. But something that has concerned me, a family, had a nephew. He passed away at 34 years old from a heart issue.
So in 2020 of July, I got married and moved out here to Lake Asbury. And it was about a year after being here, I started experiencing just tired all the time, major fatigue. And then over the months, I developed this rash that just got worse and worse and worse over my whole body. And after several doctor visits, specialists, then I was diagnosed with lupus, and they said that the contributing factor was environmental, things that were around me, something that I had come in contact with. So, after being out of work for an extended period of time on medical leave, just basically not being able to function, my kidneys were failing. All kinds of crazy things just out of nowhere, but it built up over about a 6-month period where I just started to decline my health. And when I was on medical leave, I went down this rabbit hole of the Solite and where we were in proximity, and we're very close. So then I was like, maybe something I came in contact with. I planted blueberries and blackberry bushes in my backyard and was eating them. So, I mean, if it was in the soil, it very well could have triggered it. I have no idea, but it could have been. And we still don't know. But I definitely think something triggered it. And it was, I hadn't been there very long. So, in the area and I had lived in Orange Park my whole life and then moved to Lake Asbury. So, nothing crazy happened to me until I moved here.
Long before the kilns arrived, this land was already destined for development. In 1959, the site was chosen for what lay beneath it. Just below the surface, a layer of gray-black clay, buried between 5 and 60 feet underground. It was a material with a specific quality. When exposed to extreme heat, it expanded, hardened, and transformed. This property became home to an industrial process, one that reshaped the land from below. Clay was extracted, fed into massive rotary kilns, and heated to nearly 2,000 degrees. Fuel came from many sources, such as coal, oil, and materials classified as wastes, some ignitable, some hazardous.
I remember when I was younger, I was about 5, I can't remember that I kept getting sick a lot. Didn't know why, kept going to the doctor, didn't know why, and had to have my spleen removed. There was a doctor that came in and found out that it was my spleen that fights off infections, and they had to remove it. Grew up at 15, we moved over to Russell Road, and my parents later on in life, my dad passed away. He had pancreatic cancer, and then my mom, she had uterine and stomach cancer. Don't know, none of that runs in their family or anything like that. Years later, come to find out, back in 2023, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. Nobody in my family's ever had cancer. My fiance, Sam Wright, he had brain cancer. It started with him, and they lived over here off of Sandridge also. And this was back in 23 and 24. He had brain cancer before that, and they had surgery, and then it returned, and then he passed away in January of 2024.
And while I was home recovering in March of 2020, my wife and I received a call from our daughter Jennifer, who had just found a lump in her breast. She was having a biopsy to determine the status of the lump. My own biopsy came back negative, but Jennifer's did not. It was determined she had breast cancer. March of 2020 changed our lives forever. Our beautiful daughter fought a hard fight for 2 long years, but she lost her fight with cancer 4 days after her 47th birthday, March 23rd, 2022. Those 2 years were unbearable, knowing there was nothing we could do to save her. She fought so hard. She had so much to live for. She had a perfect life, and she was so happy before her diagnosis of cancer. When she died, she left a husband, she left 3 sons, and she left a beautiful grandson she had the opportunity to hold for only a couple of short weeks. This was a devastating time in our lives and the lives of all of Jennifer's family. Life since has not been the same for any of us. Cancer changed it all. There are a few things I truly hate in life, but I hate cancer. I hate all the things that create cancer. I hate what cancer does to the people that have cancer, the suffering and the hopelessness they go through, and how it affects their families and friends. I will never understand why after all these years, our world has not found a cure for this dreaded, awful disease. So it seems the best we can do is eliminate all things that can create cancer in the human body.
35 years. 35 years. So right next door to where we're at. So, and we started getting sick not too long, after we moved here, and started having kind of strange illnesses with me, arthritis and things like that, and wasn't sure what was going on, and nobody could really tell me what was wrong with me. I spent a year at Mayo Clinic trying to find out, and they diagnosed me with a small hit on lupus, and later on with RA, and then I have several other autoimmune diseases that really don't want to get into. They're kind of private, but they are autoimmune diseases, and never really knew what was causing, what would be causing all that, because I don't really have that in my family, to my knowledge, any of that kind of illness. And I'm trying to remember what year it was. My daughter started having issues with her joints and stuff like that, and she got diagnosed with RA. She got diagnosed with scleritis in her eyes. They're both autoimmune diseases. And shortly after my granddaughter turned 9, she got sick, and she started having trouble keeping weight on, and she lost all the muscle in her legs and her arms. She didn't have very good balance at all, and we kept taking her to the doctor, and they just telling us we needed to do nutrition and try feeding her different stuff, and it wasn't working. And our primary doctor finally said take her to the emergency room, and she was diagnosed with a very rare autoimmune disease that usually doesn't affect children. So she went to the hospital for a year to get IG treatments, and that they finally diagnosed her with dermatomyositis, and it was like 1 in a million back when she got diagnosed. Since then, I've got a heart problem with tachycardia for unknown reasons, so I'm on medication for that. My husband's had colon cancer, and now he's got an autoimmune disease, and he hit lightly on lupus too. So now he has lupus.
The process produced more than just material. Air emissions were filtered, water used in the system was collected and discharged into holding areas known as scrubber ponds. Over time, the site expanded, areas for mining, processing, storage, and disposal. Spreading across hundreds of acres, adjacent to central operations, additional waste storage activities took place. By 1995, mining and production had stopped. What remained was the site itself, the former quarry, the processing areas, and the surrounding land. Operations ceased, ownership changed, closure actions were completed in some areas, but the landscape still carries the imprint of what occurred here. Not all visible, not all resolved.
What does Solite mean to me?
Yes, sir.
We're in a church, so I can't really say what I want to say. The Solite is a garbage corporation. They're full of liars, manipulators. The way they treated the environment and the people that live around the place and the employees. Yeah, they were just trash. They shouldn't have done what they done. They should have gone another route, should I say. But that's what they mean. That's what Solite means to me.
Solite's a hazardous waste dump that needs to be cleaned up for the safety of all of the people in the area.
I guess I'll use what my dad said. Solite is toxic. There was a lot of barrels, a lot of liquid stuff back there, and it was gooey and nasty, and they decided they weren't going to go back there anymore because they figured something was wrong with it. So I said, yeah, that would be a pretty good idea.
Bad in one word, not good, one sentence. After seeing all the things that I've seen over the years and the reports I've read, and physically seeing that glow in the morning going to work and hearing that pan, we could hear that pan scraping the ground with the windows open in the middle of the night.
I look at Solite plant just being like the devil. I mean, it's killing people.
Something that should have been destroyed and shut down years ago. So many people and lives have been affected by this plant. Not just, I'm saying, lots of people.
I would say Solite, like, in the ways that it's impacted me this my whole life, it has brought a lot of change, and change that I didn't want to happen. I wanted to have a normal childhood, and instead I was in pain for a lot of it, and I had to adapt my life to what this entity did to me, and I was not able to control anything about it.
Solite is a company that destroyed a major area in our county and a beautiful piece of property, and has never had to own up to it, has never had to clean up or do the testing that should be required. They ran, and they were cowards, and they took away so many people's lives, and now we don't even know what's going to happen in the future because they're not willing to do what they need to do.
How can you do that to fill your pockets and destroy families? because you're just not destroying a person, you're destroying families. It's never going to leave our family. It's going to stay with our family. And if you didn't know you were doing it, once you found out that it was doing it, would you not want to fix that?
I think it's, a solution. People want answers. If people were affected, then I think the company that caused all of this issue should be held accountable in some form or fashion.
My name is Joan Starnes. I'm a registered nurse. I've been involved with before the task force was created in 2018 when I heard about Solite and the issues. As a registered nurse, I've also worked with veterans with Agent Orange, which is dioxin, and the health damage that it causes, and the bureaucracy of the VA. What I find here and what my concern is and what upsets me is the federal department protective agency is not protecting the population.
Well, we opened a dialogue with Florida Department of Environmental Protection a few years ago. We've done an extensive amount of research. Fortunately, in our great state of Florida, with our sunshine laws, there are voluminous records in FDEP's archives. We have downloaded and studied literally thousands of documents. We have had meetings with FDEP officials. We've had several trips to Tallahassee to sit down with Secretary of DEP, several undersecretaries or deputy secretaries of DEP, and some of the higher management officials within DEP, and presented our concerns, presented our issues, in some cases presented them with evidence that came out of their own archives that they seemed to be unaware of at the time we presented it. So that dialogue continues. We have had telephone meetings with them, video meetings with them, in-person meetings with them. We communicate by email on a fairly frequent basis. When they come out with reports, or if the respondents' contractors come out with reports, we review them, we comment on them. On numerous occasions we have seen what we felt were errors and shortfalls in those reports. We point them out to the state, and in some cases they've taken action on them, and in some cases we're still awaiting them to take action on them. So yeah, communications is the biggest thing. We try to study the issues. We try to stay away from histrionics. Our folks are passionate, but passions don't have a place in scientific arguments. So we try to focus on the science, focus on the reality, stick to the facts, and try to sway DEP to do the right thing based on scientific evidence. That's been our major means of communication and our major means of trying to bring about a positive outcome.
What is shared in conversation often reveals more than data alone can show. It points to relationships between people and place, between past decisions and present conditions. But understanding these relationships is not always straightforward. There are gaps, uncertainties, things that remain difficult to measure or fully explain. And yet, these experiences continue to hold meaning. They shape how a place is understood, how it is remembered, and how it is questioned. In this way, each story becomes part of a larger effort.
So what I would like ultimately is for it to be cleaned. If that's not possible because of the extent of how big this property is and how much contamination is actually there, the area where the facility was that we know is severely contaminated that they're looking at now, and Solite has, unfortunately, we're scared they've talked DEP into allowing it to just have a fence around it and signs and cameras. I would like for it to be dredged and then capped,
to where we know it's clean, and so they have to test it wherever far down they go, that they would actually test it to make sure it's clean. If that is not, if they can't fully clean it, then the area they are actually able to clean, I would like for it to serve the community in a park or some kind, trails, boat ramp, whatever. But no matter what, we have to know it's clean at that area. But if there's ever going to be development, we just have to be safe, feel safe that they've done what they're supposed to do, and personally, I mean, I think like Bruce being involved in it, to where we know that it actually has been taken care of the right way, or someone like Bruce. Thank God for Bruce, by the way, if this ever comes out, that he came forward to help and has never asked for any kind of payment. I mean, he's just an angel to us, to me, for sure, to my family. But that is just such key for me, is to be able to trust that they actually have cleaned it, that they actually have tested it, that they aren't, because we feel like so much has been covered up. And so my ultimate goal, it would be for the community to be safe, and to know that we can live in our homes, and we can drink our water, and we can swim in our waterways without being scared that our kids are going to get sick, and future generations, because we know that once it gets in our DNA, that it can go on to future generations. So, and that's a very big fear for me and my family. So,
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.